Hey guys, welcome for tuning in to this edition of Let's Be Blunt with Montel, and I am so thankful to have the guest on that we have today. Back in 2018, Michigan became the first state in the Midwest to legalize the possession and sale of cannabis for adult use. But 2018 also marked a historic injustice when a husband and a father of three was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison for his operation of a Detroit city-sanctioned medical cannabis dispensary. Joining me by phone from Michigan State Prison, where he's now been incarcerated for 3 years and 8 months of his 5.5-year sentence for a victimless cannabis offense, is Mr. Rudi Gammo. Rudy, thanks so much for tuning in with or calling in today, sir.
Hi, everybody, and thank you for having me. Just want to say, struggling here, still fighting the fight. Thank God the governor has accepted my application for a commutation. I still have to go through the process of the parole board, seeing the parole board and having a public hearing. It's a pretty lengthy process. Still fighting the fight to get released, but huge injustice how Michigan is treating cannabis prisoners.
Let's go back for a minute and tell us a little bit about, now there was a gray market in cannabis in Michigan from 2010 to 2016. Tell me why this even existed.
What happened in that era was that the state had legalized medical marijuana in 2008, and there were so many injustices of how to get your cannabis and helping patients and caregivers, and the city of Detroit took it upon itself to open what's called medical marijuana caregiver centers, and I was one of the first to get approved for that medical marijuana caregiver center. And different counties and different cities had different views on cannabis. They were still going after and arresting patients and arresting people that were growing marijuana in their homes. And I lived in that county, which was Oakland County, and they had different views than the city of Detroit. City of Detroit had no problem. I opened this.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but wait, let's slow down for a second. This seems kind of crazy. Are you telling me that the state passed a medical marijuana law, the city of Detroit then sanctioned dispensaries of which you received a license for, but you happen to be in a county that didn't sanction the same laws that the state and the city did? Is that what's going on?
Correct. And I was growing in multiple homes in that county under the caregiver law, caregiver patient law, and they took it upon themselves to raid all the homes and charge all the homes together and all the growers, and they charged us all as a continued enterprise. They charged us what they would charge for mafia figures, organized crime, for cocaine and heroin dealers. Nobody in Michigan, nobody in Oakland County has ever been charged just for growing marijuana for a criminal enterprise. I was doing everything right. I was depositing money in banks. I was paying taxes. Even the IRS came when they raided us, and the IRS looked at my taxes and said, we don't want to prosecute you. The federal government, federal prosecutor, DEA, they didn't want to prosecute either. Oakland County took it upon themselves and said, we'll prosecute him. He has a record, and we're hitting him with a max.
Well,
charging me 13 charges.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but wait. In the county, well, first off, let me go back. The state allowed for personal grow, correct?
Correct.
And you were a entrepreneur that owned several different houses, right?
Correct.
Now,
and I found a niche. I found a niche to make some more money on rental properties. And what I did, I set up the rental properties as grow houses, and I would put a licensed caregiver in there. All the marijuana was being sold and brought to the dispensary. It's not like we're selling to random people on the streets or anybody like that.
So, and this was,
So,
if you will, in a way, even though the laws were gray, you were following what you thought was the law.
correct.
And
Absolutely.
the county got angry. I mean, and why? Give me part of the reason why you think that you were singled out and persecuted the way you were.
There was no, since this was the medical marijuana law was a voters approved law, there was no state aid to teach the police departments what was right and what was wrong. So everyone was just acting out in their own discretion. The
And
police
figuring out
departments
how
were
they wanted to enforce whatever they wanted to individually enforce.
absolutely, and they were trying to, I guess, bust all whatever they could. And same thing with the prosecutors. The the prosecutors were also enforcing whatever they wanted. They never, the prosecutors in Wayne County, they were more about murder and guns and stuff like that. No time for marijuana. But Oakland County, they have time for marijuana because they don't have that much drugs and murder in their county. So, to me, that was their way to go after and make their final arrest or so-called. It's a business.
And this county was also taking some tax dollars out of you, were they not?
Absolutely, absolutely. When they raided me, they didn't charge me with nothing in the beginning. They charged me $150,000 to get my property back. They seized all my properties. After I paid them $150,000 to get my property back, 3 months later they came and hit me with charges. They weren't going to charge me with anything, supposedly what they said.
And then they charged you with, give me, what was the real charge? Was it like conspiracy or something? I don't really understand.
The charges were continued. For every home we were growing in, they charged me with maintaining a drug house. They charged me with growing over 200 plants, conspiracy of growing over 200 plants, delivery of marijuana, conspiracy of delivery of marijuana, and then 2 charges of continued criminal enterprise and another charge of conspiracy to continue criminal enterprise.
And at the same time,
Montel, unfortunately, they're having an emergency count. They just rang the emergency buzzer. I have to hang up the phone. I'm gonna try to call you guys back within an hour. I'm really sorry about this. A horrible timing.
That's okay, my friend. That's okay. And if we can't connect today, we'll get you back at another time. Okay?
And my wife is on there. My wife, I would love for her to speak too. I still want to talk about how my son has leukemia, and the new Oakland County prosecutor dismissed all my charges, but the judge, because I pled guilty, the judge couldn't release me and overturn my conviction.
That's insane. What's your wife's first name?
My wife is Vita. I got to hang up now. Vita, okay. Take over, please. I'll try to call you guys back in an hour.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
And Vita, please get their contact so we can call them.
Thank you for using GTL.
I'm right here. So if you want to ask me any questions, I'm right here.
Tell me your first name again. I'm sorry.
My name is Vida, V-I-D-A, Gammo.
Vida Gammo. Were you involved at all? Well, I shouldn't ask you that question. You knew about your husband's business, correct?
Of course, yes.
And was he doing anything that anybody else in that area wasn't doing? I mean, I'm under the impression that almost all of the dispensary owners were doing the same kind of thing. They had multiple sites that were growing cannabis.
No, everybody was doing the same.
And he got singled out.
Yes, I don't want to point the finger at nobody, but I think a couple people that was jealous of what was going on and how organized the business was. I think somebody got raided a couple months before. And that's what happened. After that, that's what happened. After that person got raided, 3 months after in our house, the police came over at like around 5:30 in the morning.
And you were growing some plants in your house too, correct?
We were growing what it was the um, legal limit in the house. Yes, for personal.
The legal limit being grown in your house, and the legal limit he probably set up to be grown in each one of the other residences, right?
Yes, the other residents were leased though. Like whoever was living in the other residences were caregivers, licensed caregivers, and they with their families, they rented the house with the purpose of growing.
So on one side, this is a legal enterprise, but then on the other side, the county looked at it as if it wasn't a legal enterprise. But I mean, your husband has now been locked away for 70% of his sentence. How has this impacted your family?
Well, it's more the impact besides the monetary situation, because I'm a waitress now when my husband is not here, and I take care of the house and the kids. My parents help me still. The other thing, the most how I can say, the worst thing that happened to us now that he's not around is that my kids, they got lack of support of their father. They're always been so attached to him. We have a 19-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 7-year-old. And the 7-year-old has leukemia. He got diagnosed with leukemia last year on his birthday. And we need Rudy to be home to go to the hospital for chemotherapy treatments. For my son doesn't feel good when he comes home from the chemotherapy treatments. He wants his dad. And he's a boy too. I feel like he needs that discipline from the father. My little daughter, she's daddy's girl. Thank God, because the phones in the prison, thank God, that's one of the things that we still together. My kids don't forget about their father. They're very still attached to them. We visit them every week if we can. Now with COVID, we can visit them as how the visits were before COVID. We could touch them, we could hug them and kiss them. Now there's none of that. We go to visit with a mask on, no contact visit, even though we still can say bye and hi with a hug. The whole visit is we don't supposed to touch each other. Stuff like that. It bothers. It affected a lot in that matter in our family structure.
Were you able to maintain? Were you able to keep the business up and running when he left? Or I know he said
no. When he left, before he even got tried, before his plea and everything, he had to sell the business because he couldn't be involved in that kind of that business.
Or he couldn't let you take over.
No, he couldn't, because I would have been involved. I'm Mexican. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm a alien resident, so I couldn't take that kind of big responsibility, especially because our president wasn't having it, and I would be scared to have any immigration problems because of it.
Are you hoping that Rudy gets released in an early release program? I know right now there's a petition into the governor to see if she could.
Yeah, I'm hoping everything goes well and the governor accepts his commutation. We've been going through different people to ask for help for him to be released, like the prosecutor, like the old prosecutor too, but she was very conservative, so she couldn't ever help Rudy to come home. I think Rudy's criminal record doesn't help.
But
I don't know. Every door that we've been.
Sorry, his criminal record didn't stop the state from giving him a license.
No, the criminal record didn't stop him for the city actually for giving my license. Everything that he did, he always went and get a permit for whatever he needed to make sure the store was open legally, you know. We never sold to a undercover, and I said never because I used to work there too as a receptionist or whatever is needed. So we never opened the door for somebody that wasn't medically licensed to purchase marijuana or any kind of paraphernalia or anything. So we really don't understand if he did everything right or what it was right by then. Like you say, it was gray areas that people was taking advantage of, not just him. And suddenly, for some reason, one morning, somebody just threw him out the door.
That's absolutely insane. And, how is your son doing now?
My son's doing better. He's on remission right now, thank God, but he still take chemotherapy treatment every day at my house. Now I don't have to take him to the hospital, but I still have to take him to the hospital every 3 months. His treatment go all the way to December next year, December 2022. But he's overall he's good. Like I said, he's a boy, so there's nothing that take that from him. He's jumping, he's playing every day. He go to school.
And I'm sure I was going to say, I'm sure that you guys, your family has been extremely happy and excited about the fact that the Last Prisoner Project decided to take on Rudy's case. Are you not?
Yeah, we're happy. We've been talking to Mary a lot. We have like a little friendship relationship with Mary, which, by the way, Rudy himself finds the way to talk to somebody from the Last Prisoner Project.
Okay. All right. Well, Vita, I got to say thank you. And I'm so sorry your family is going through this. And, I hope that this is resolved quickly.
Thank you. Thank you for you guys' time, and thank you for having us and help us at least to put this out there so people know what's going on.
Absolutely. And just so you know, what we're going to do is we're going to reach out to Last Prison Project, get somebody from their legal team on to answer some more of these questions. We'll meld these two together and make a solid podcast out of it. And maybe when, at a later date, we could definitely get, within the next couple of weeks, we can get Rudy back on when he, is not being called away for a lockdown.
Of course. He will tell me at time. That was just probably an emergency, but hopefully soon we can do this again.
Absolutely. Let's try to do this, okay? Well, hey, guys, look, Rudy just got called away because I guess they're doing a count in the prison. So joining us right now to help me talk about his situation is the executive director and the general counsel to the Last Prison Project, Miss Sarah Gerston. Sarah, thanks so much for being here. You've done, thanks for filling in right this second. We're going to get Rudy back on as soon as we can. But maybe you can help us understand. I'm finding it really tough to understand what really happened to him. You have a state that passes legislation that says that it is legal to sell medicinal marijuana. You have a city, or I guess he was given a license to do the same, though administratively they hadn't worked out all of the detail, and then he gets persecuted for their lack of detail. Is that right?
That's exactly right, Montel. Unfortunately, when Michigan passed their Medical Marijuana Act, they did not pass the kind of clear regulations that operators really needed to stay compliant, because there was no clear understanding of what compliance meant in the state prior to them actually passing those regulations. So in order for patients who so desperately needed medical cannabis in the intervening years after passing medical marijuana, but not passing the regulations, operators like Rudy were trying to fill that gap, but unfortunately only were able to operate quasi-legal dispensaries because there simply were no clear regulations from the state.
But when we say, I mean, I appreciate the way you said it, quasi-legal, because they were given licenses from some municipality, correct?
Absolutely. And Rudy was licensed by the city of Detroit.
So being licensed by the city of Detroit, and I do understand he was skirting that little fine line when he, because he had multiple residences that were his own that he owned, but he allowed them to be rental properties. Each person that was contracted to be a renter in his properties was a person who was then designated a caregiver, which means that they were under another part of the law that allows them to grow a certain amount. But they were growing a certain amount and giving it just to Rudy to be able to sell in the dispensary, which would have made it more legal than going to the black market and getting product to sell in this dispensary. So he's using the legal gray line to fill his dispensary. It seems just ridiculous that the prosecutors went after him this way.
And that's exactly the issue. We are not arguing that Rudy did nothing illegal, right? I think it's, of course, unfortunate that there really wasn't an opportunity at the time for him to be operating a fully compliant dispensary because, as we've said, the state really made that impossible for operators. But what we're saying is that Rudy's sentence is incredibly unjust. As you've stated, this was a city-sanctioned dispensary. It was only providing cannabis to documented medical patients that had a medicinal need for this plant. And yet he's got a sentence of 66 months to 30 years. So much longer than the kinds of sentences that we see for violent offenses in the state of Michigan. And that's what we're trying to call out with Rudy's case, is the injustice of that sentence.
And just the fact that in this state, this is a state that was taking tax dollars out of him. This is a state that was reaping benefit from what he was doing. They even fined him and got more benefit. Then they turn around and throw him in jail.
Exactly. And at the time, the state's already has this robust medical industry. Now, when you look at the legal landscape in Michigan, we have full adult use. The state is bringing in millions of dollars just in tax revenue from that industry, and at the same time is refusing to redress the sentences for people like Rudy under a legal scheme that has so obviously changed, for something that public policy and attitudes have so clearly shifted in the state of Michigan to understand that this is not something that should be criminalized, and certainly should not be criminalized so harshly as we've seen in Rudy's case.
And Rudy wasn't alone in this. Were there other people incarcerated the same way Rudy was?
Absolutely. And we've, spoken before about one case that luckily we were able to secure freedom for Michael Thompson last year. But he was exactly the same situation where you have someone, this was pre the medical act, but someone who is a nonviolent offender selling cannabis. And as you know, Michael got a de facto life sentence in that state. And not only was that harsh at the time that sentence was meted out, but the state, again, has done nothing to go back and provide relief to those individuals under those sentences, even though the law has changed. And we know that there are hundreds of other individuals in DOC custody in Michigan, in state custody, for nonviolent cannabis offenses.
Now, do you think, Rudy's case will be something, I guess the governor has accepted the application. What do you think the governor is going to do in this particular case? I don't understand why she just doesn't go back in and say anybody from this day forward who was a crime, you're out. Just skip it.
That really is the goal, and that is what we're pushing for in several states, not just Michigan, but any state that has fully legalized cannabis. That categorical clemency should be granted for anyone who is currently incarcerated for nonviolent cannabis offenses. I hope that Governor Whitmer can understand the need for that kind of relief in the state of Michigan. And of course, it's hopeful that she's commuted the sentence of someone like Michael, other drug offenders in the state of Michigan. And I'm hopeful, knowing that the parole board is starting to take up commutation cases again, including Rudy's, that that's a signal that the governor is taking this issue seriously and thinking about how she can provide that relief for those still incarcerated.
I mean, when you look at Rudy's case, again, he had, I guess, 5.5 year to 30, you said. He's already done 3.5. Come on. Now, I mean, why, you just want to leave him in the 5.5 just for the heck of it?
Right. And especially in a case like Rudy's, where he's already been in jeopardy, being incarcerated amidst COVID. He's already contracted COVID. He has a young son who's dealing with leukemia. His family needs him home. And it makes no sense for Governor Whitmer not to address that, to let him go back to his family. He served more than enough time.
Seems to me like, if we look at things called RICO laws and things like that, I mean, the state is a player in this. They receive remuneration from his cannabis sales, so therefore they should be as culpable, meaning the governor. I mean, everybody go down, the entire state, whoever touched any of those tax dollars and used them for anything, they are a partner of his, not the overseer. They should be considered with him. So I mean, it seems just so ridiculous. I know you guys are at the Last Prisoner Project are working on so many different initiatives, and that's also one of the biggest problems I think you face, right? That every state is different, correct?
Yes, every state has a different regulatory scheme. Some states are enacting the kind of resentencing and expungement legislation that we want to see tied to legalization, but the vast majority are not. And even in states that have enacted resentencing, it's very limited. So someone like Rudy, who unfortunately got multiple counts tied to operating a dispensary, doesn't just have a distribution of marijuana charge. He has, like you said, potentially a racketeering charge, state racketeering, money laundering, conducting a criminal enterprise. And so when the state says we're going to resentence only those who have strictly a cannabis offense, that unfortunately leaves out individuals like Rudy.
That's absolutely ridiculous. I'm so glad that we're able to help you in any way that we can with the Last Prison Project. And if people wanted to get more information about Last Prison Project, where would they go?
They can go to lastprisonerproject.org, and there you can find more information about Rudy's case, all of the cases that were taken on, and luckily read some of the success stories of individuals that have gotten to come home, rebuild their lives with their families. And that's really the goal of this organization. So anyone who wants to help achieve that mission, encourage you to go to the website, check it out, and get involved in Rudy's case.
And of course, I know you won't do it, but I'll do the shameless plug. I mean, come on now. Also donate. We need some funding to get this done, correct?
Definitely. Of course, funding is the lifeblood of us being able to enact these programs. And a big part of what we do is when we are fortunate enough to have folks coming home, we want to ensure they have the financial resources to rebuild their lives. So a ton of our funding goes directly back to our constituents who are coming home, trying to rebuild their lives. And so it's a great opportunity for people to donate directly to those most affected by prohibition.
There you go. Well, for sure. I can't say thank you enough, Sarah, for being a part of the show today. And we're going to get Rudy back on to finish our interview with him. And then hopefully you'll be able to use this on your website to let people hear the injustices that are taking place.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Montel, and for having Rudy and sharing his story.
Absolutely. Well, hey, guys, well, like you heard, Rudy just got called away for a count in the prison. I don't know why that happened, but he did. But as the magic of editing and podcasts go, we're able to get Rudy back with us right now. So Rudi Gammo, thank you so much for being a part of Let's Be Blunt with Montel today. And thanks for coming back on, man. It's been a tough couple of days, huh?
Thank you, Montel. Yeah. Last time we talked, they unfortunately blew some kind of emergency count where we all had to lock it down. They do that like once a month. It's kind of an irritating situation.
I can understand, my friend, and I'm so sorry that we had to put off the completion of the interview, but I'm glad you're back. And let's just pick up right where we kind of left off. And we kind of left off with them, you explaining to us what happened and how you wound up in this predicament. And, I want to back up just a little bit more and just ask you, first off, you said that they came, they busted you, they took your property, they required that you pay a fine, you pay the fine. You thought it was all done, right?
Absolutely. They weren't talking about any charges at all. To them, marijuana, anyone growing marijuana is a money grab, and that's what they were after. They know if they go arrest your heroin person doing heroin, usually that person doesn't really have any money. For them, it's if someone's growing marijuana, he's a working class person. He has a house, most likely has a car. It's all a money seizure game to them. So what they did, they seized 6 of my properties and charged me 25 grand for each property. I had to sell one of the properties. I paid 150 grand to the prosecuting office and made a check out to the prosecuting office and the Oakland County narcotics unit.
And you
Took the
thought it was
150
done.
grand. I thought it was done. 3 months later, they don't even have the decency to come and call my lawyer. They came and surrounded my house while I was taking my kids to school and came and arrested me in front of my kids, in front of my family.
I mean, what went through your mind at that second? Did you think, come on, are you kidding me? I thought this was all over.
Yeah, I said, what do you guys? I said, what are you guys arresting me for? What kind of charges are there? Oh, well, wait till you hear the charges. I said, has to be minimal. It can't be. What's it called? How many charges are you hitting me with? They gave me 13 charges, 6 charges for every grow house I had, maintaining a drug house, growing marijuana, conspiracy to growing, delivering marijuana, conspiracy to deliver, and then 2 more of the serious charges were criminal enterprise and running a conspiracy criminal enterprise, which those charges carry a 20-year max. My bond, Montel, my bond was set at $2 million.
I've spoken to some people at the last prison project who told me that, what is so insane about this is that at the same time, they charge you with things that should have been considered legal since you were operating under a license or under the authority of a municipality, right?
Especially in Detroit, we had the license. In Oakland County, by state law, you're allowed to grow as a caregiver for your patients. And they had an ordinance where they weren't allowed any dispensaries in Oakland County. And there was another dispensary that...
You have 1 minute remaining.
It's going to take me about 1 minute to call you guys back if we do hang up. But they had another dispensary in Oakland County. They raided, and the person was an older lady. She used to be a police dispatcher. They fought her tooth and nail and finally dropped her charge to transporting marijuana. Over 2 years, they fought with her, and she used to work for the police department. So that's how keen they were on charging anyone that went against or was with proactive for the Medical Marijuana Act.
I mean, it almost sounds like it's a setup. They give you the license and then turn right around and bust you. So it's almost like they are kind of trying to prop you up just to bust you.
Well, one city was, and they didn't agree with the state law. And the city of Detroit didn't have no problem. They were giving dispensary licenses. But the county of Oakland, they didn't have no dispensaries in there. So, how could you, if one city's doing it and one city's not?
Thank you for using GTL.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Got you back. Thank you.
Hey, sorry about that, Montel. Yeah.
No, that's okay.
So,
and
it was happening like that all over the state of Michigan. There was no education from the state to the police departments. I even did a couple seminars and symposiums. I used to go to the police stations with an attorney and do seminars for them and kind of go over what the law was. I would take marijuana and I would show them, this is what marijuana smells like. This is what it smells like when it's burnt. And the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office hated that I was doing that. So they were really, we put a billboard right across the Oakland County building that said, vote not guilty on marijuana convictions. And that threw them off the edge. They went nuts after that.
And that's probably why they didn't necessarily single you out, because there were lots of others arrested near the same time, correct?
Correct. Correct. But in some sort, they did single us out because there were at the time they arrested me, there was Vita. Can you put it on mute, please? At the time they arrested me, there was 200 other dispensaries operating in the city of Detroit,
Absolutely insane.
doing the same exact thing. Everybody was growing under the caregiver statute, under the medical marijuana law, and they were selling to patients at the dispensaries. Anytime you come to the dispensary, you had to have a patient card. We do a thorough check on you. I never got caught selling to an undercover, somebody that was a non-patient. We had a sign on the dispensary that said free legal help. I was paying for people because people were still getting arrested for the medical marijuana if they were having medicine on them, driving. There was no law on how much marijuana you could drive with, or if you smoked, when you smoked, if you were still high and driving. There was no law on any of that. So people were still getting arrested. And I was paying for attorneys, a couple of attorneys that I worked with, that I still work with. One named Barton Morris, he's the head of the Cannabis legal group. And we would pay for their services, all free of charge to the patients.
Well, buddy, I mean, do you have any hope that you will get released early?
Yeah, hopefully right now the governor has started my commutation process. And I did my initial interview on October 11th. So we're waiting. Right now I'm waiting for a public hearing. If the parole board has interest to release me, they will give me a public hearing, and they will make a recommendation to the governor saying, what my guidelines should be or whatsoever. So the governor is the one who has the final say.
And
Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Governor, what is that?
I'm sorry, that's at the state level. Can the county, I mean, do you have to do something at the county level too?
I went, thank God, the prosecutor, the newly elected prosecutor for Oakland County, her name is Karen McDonald. She's pro-marijuana. She's a beautiful person inside and out. She dismissed all my charges, and we put a joint motion together to the judge back in June. The judge dragged me down there. I went in front of him, brought my family in front of him and everything, and he said, I'm sorry, I cannot release you because you pled guilty, and he cannot overturn a guilty plea without either newly discovered evidence or retroactive change in the marijuana law, which unfortunately in Michigan's recreational law, there was no retroactive change. That means anyone who had any kind of marijuana felonies before the law went in recreational, their cases would have been dismissed or expunged. So unfortunately, he couldn't do anything, but he did note that he would not object if I went the legislative avenue and asked for the Governor Gretchen Whitmer, to use her clemency powers to commute my sentence. And the prosecutor, bless her heart, she reached out to the governor, she reached out to the parole board, and they started my commutation process. So right now, the fight's not over. We still need all the support and letters to pour into the governor's office to ask for my release.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, what can people do? What else can they do to help you out? I know your family probably is in need of some financial support.
Absolutely. Financial support. Thank God I have family around. Thank God my wife works and the house is, we do have our house is paid off. She doesn't have a problem with paying the mortgage or anything. I do have five siblings that help us out financially. And thank God my kids are well and everyone's well and blessed. My son does have leukemia. He's been fighting it for a year. He's going through a 2-year chemotherapy. That's what I need to get home to. And because of the pandemic, they've restricted all visits. Everything in the prison is restricted. This prison is crumbling. Just like out there's a shortage of jobs. The correctional officers here don't want to work anymore. And they're all overstressed, mandated they're releasing people slowly.
I mean, Rudy.
So I do ask whoever's listening to this if they can write our governor, or they can write the chief deputy legal counsel. His name is Mark Trotton. He's the one that approves the commutation and discusses it with the governor. He's the main person. Again, that's chief deputy legal counsel for Governor Gretchen Whitmer. His name is Mark Trotton.
Now, when they let you out, you'll be prohibited from going back into the cannabis business, will you not?
I think that's up to the parole officer. I think if it's a legal business and I'm not abusing it in any way and doing work, there is a program that Michigan has. It's called the Injustice program, where if you did have any kind of marijuana felonies on your record, they expedite your process to get a state license in your name. I don't know if they have those. I think they have another program that in California and Colorado, and Michigan has picked up that process.
So you may be able to get out and go back into business the same way you were. But if you try to go back into business the way you were, you end up back. Well, no, now that the state has a adult use rec program, how will that affect the possibility of you getting back into business?
Well, I would have to go through that Injust program and get a state license in my name.
Crazy. Anything else you want to share?
Go
ahead.
Anything else I can share is, there's still over 40,000 cannabis prisoners. We still have to fight for them. I plan on doing advocacy work with the Last Prisoner Project. They've been awesome. Mary Bailey, Sarah Gerston, they've been at my side and fighting all through the way. They've donated funds to my family. They wrote letters to the judge, spoke with the prosecutor's office. Also, my attorney, Barton Morris, with Cannabis Legal Group, has been awesome. He accepts my calls anytime, on the weekends, at night. He always picks up the phone for me. I'm thankful for that. And really, that's all I can say. And I hope everyone takes this seriously, because nobody should be in prison for what's legal. And people are making millions out there in cannabis businesses, and there's other people still locked up.
I want you to share one more thing, and that is just how has this affected your relationship with your children?
It's drastically. My children are, thank God, I speak to them every day. I spend all my time talking to them on the phone. I call them when they wake up, call them when they come back from school, and call them when they come back from home. But my wife has a hard time taking care of my son and giving attention to my other kids. They become very independent. But I try to be the voice of reason. And thank God they still love me. They still miss me. We do have visits. They're non-contact visits, and we do video visits. So my wife still brings them up here. We still have a very strong relationship. I paint pictures for them. I send cards. And I wish every father in prison would do that for their kids, because they need that. And then they always tell me, in our language, they call me Baba. It's like another word for daddy. They tell me, Baba, we'll always be here for you. Baba, we're going to help mommy. Baba, it's okay that you're in prison. We're going to wait for you. And that's so valuable to me. That's so valuable to me, to keep me motivated, to keep me focused on out there and not focused on what's going on in here.
And I mean, now I asked the question, could you get back into the cannabis industry, or has this tainted you now and made you want to try to figure out a different business to get into, or are you thinking about?
I've done construction all my life. If I did get in the cannabis industry, it would be morely in the real estate aspect of it. Buying properties, fixing them up, and selling them as licensed cannabis. The cannabis game is so saturated, and it's very saturated right now. There's so many corporate entities that are getting in and buying all the little guys out. I don't think it would be any money to it. But I'm always going to advocate for prisoners. I advocate for cannabis prisoners especially. But definitely, I'm going to go back into the real estate and construction market. I know it's safe. I can't take any chances losing my family again or being away from them again. I already missed 4 years of too many milestones in their life, and it's a killer, especially now with the pandemic. For 18 months I didn't see them. They just started the non-contact visits 2 months ago. So a whole year and a half I went without seeing them, just talking to them on the phone.
That's insane. Well, it's stories like yours, Rudy, to prove
Yeah.
that legalization alone does not repair this long-standing injustices and disproportionate enforcement of our legal system, resulting in the war on drugs like this. I mean, lawmakers and elected officials.
Absolutely.
Lawmakers and elected officials in Michigan must do their part to ensure with legalization comes a system for rectifying nonviolent cannabis convictions. I certainly hope that the parole board and the governor literally takes immediate action to commute your sentence, Rudy, and hope that you can get home as
The
soon as you
governor,
can to your family.
the
Go ahead.
Governor Gretchen Whitmer used this so strong in her campaign. She said it in her campaign. Oh, we're going to free everyone. I'm going to use my clemency powers. She only released one person so far. She did do the Clean Slate Act, but that's for everybody that was out of prison, out of jail, and has finished with their sentence or active conviction. She could have used her clemency powers during the pandemic and released everybody in an instant, whoever was in prison for marijuana. I don't know why she didn't do it, but I hope that the marijuana community really has a keen eye on if she tries to use this as her campaign slogan. You and I both know the marijuana community, organizations, marijuana businesses have big money behind them that comes with big donations. And I hate when politicians use that and say, oh, we're going to do this for marijuana, we're going to do this for marijuana, and they don't do anything to get those donations and those big businesses to donate to them and take their side. I've seen that firsthand.
We've seen it at the national level also. I mean, again, remember, we had a president and a vice president
Absolutely.
ran. They were going to do something in the first 100 days. And here we are sitting at, close to 200 days, and there's been nothing and no movement at all. So I think that local politicians are doing nothing.
I'm not a Democrat or Republican. President Trump has done more for the people in prison with the First Step Act and released cannabis offenders than any other president has done. I applaud him for that. And I just hope that, like I said, I hope these other politicians that use cannabis in their campaign slogan, that they go in and accomplish their goals and do what they're going to say.
Or say what they're going to do. I'm sorry.
You have 1 minute remaining.
Rudy, I got to say thank you so
Absolutely.
much, Sarah. Stay safe in there.
Thank you, Montel, and I hope you do the same. I hope you get in contact with Mary Bailey and send a letter out to the governor. And you guys can reach out to my wife or my name on Facebook if you guys need anything, or Mary Bailey. Thank you so much for hearing what I have to say and having me on your podcast.
And I want to thank all of our listeners to Let's Be Blunt with Montel for spending the time listening to your story. And hopefully they'll do just what you asked. Tell them again, where do you want the letters to go to?
The letter needs to go to the Chief Deputy Counsel for Governor Gretchen Whitmer at the state of Michigan in Lansing.
And his name?
His name is Mark Trotton. Chief Deputy Counsel Mark Trotton for Governor Gretchen Whitmer.
Okay, my friend, we'll do that, and we'll keep plugging away.
Thank you, Montel.
Supporting you as much as we can, sir. You stay well. Blessings to your family.
You got it. And hopefully I'll talk to you soon. And
Thank you for using.
Well, as you can see, we just lost Rudy again, and that's because of the way that they allow him only certain amount of time per phone call each time that he gets the call out. But it's so good that he was able to share his story with us today. And I think it makes you understand that, as draconian as some of these laws are, we need to get beyond this. And politicians need to stop paying lip service to, claiming that they're going to support cannabis causes when they truly don't. I mean, I think it's absolutely an abomination that Rudy is in prison. It almost seems like to me that he was set up, given a license, told to operate, just so that they could turn around and bust him for doing what they told him he could do legally. It's time for all of these laws across the country to change. And it's time for us to hold these politicians accountable. Don't make a promise if you're not going to actually stand up and support the promise that you made. We wish Rudi Gammo the best. Hope that the governor does take on his case and commutes his sentence, lets him out. He's been sitting in there now for 3.5 years on a 5.5-year to 30-year sentence, and he's done his time. He's paid his debt tenfold, I think. So it's time to let this man go home to his family and become a contributing member of our society again. I can't thank you enough for being a part of Let's Be Blunt with Montel. I want to make sure you continue to tune in. Make sure you continue to listen to the stories and the things that we bring you. And, all you got to do is hit a little subscribe button down at the bottom. Let us know what you think. Let us know how you feel. And if you can, reach out, write a letter on Rudy's behalf. I'll see you on the next Let's Be Blunt with Montel.